In just 47 seconds, one of country music's biggest legends went from smiling guest to walking off stage in the most explosive exit The View has ever witnessed. What started as a simple conversation about small-town values turned into a full-blown shouting match that left Joy Behar speechless and Reba McEntire storming through the studio doors, vowing never to return. Before we dive into this absolute chaos, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals, the confrontations they don't want you to see, and the moments that get scrubbed from the internet. You won't want to miss what happens next. The tension in the studio last night was thick from the moment Reba McEntire walked onto that stage. The country superstar, known for her down-to-earth personality and genuine warmth, took her seat next to the panel with her signature smile. But anyone watching could sense something was different. Joy Behar's expression wasn't the usual welcoming grin she saves for most guests. There was something sharp in her eyes, something waiting. The first few minutes seemed normal enough. Whoopi Goldberg asked Reba about her latest tour, and the singer lit up talking about performing for her fans across the country. She spoke about the small towns she'd visited, the families who'd driven hours to see her show, and how grateful she felt to connect with people who'd supported her for decades. It was heartfelt. It was genuine. And that's exactly when Joy decided to strike. "So Reba," Joy interrupted, her voice cutting through Reba's story like a knife. "All these small towns you're talking about, these rural areas, a lot of them voted a certain way in recent elections. Does that ever make you uncomfortable? Performing for people who might not share, let's say, progressive values?" The studio went quiet. You could hear the audience shift in their seats. Reba's smile faded slightly, but she maintained her composure. "Well, Joy, I don't really look at my fans that way. When I'm on stage, I see people who love music. I see families. I don't ask them who they voted for before I sing to them." Joy leaned forward, and there was this condescending tone in her voice that anyone watching could pick up on. "But surely, you must have opinions about the political climate in these areas. I mean, some of these places have views that are, frankly, pretty backwards on women's rights, on equality." "Backwards?" Reba's voice had an edge now. The friendly country star was starting to show some steel. "Joy, these are good people, hard-working people. They might not agree with everything you believe, but that doesn't make them backwards." Joy laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. It was dismissive, mocking even. "Come on, Reba. You can't seriously sit here and defend some of the things that happen in rural America. The resistance to progress, the outdated thinking." "Outdated thinking?" Reba straightened in her chair. "Joy, these people you're calling outdated are the ones who work the farms that feed this country. They're teachers, nurses, veterans. They have values. They have faith. Just because they don't think like you do doesn't mean they're wrong." The other hosts looked uncomfortable. Sonny Hostin tried to jump in with a question about Reba's upcoming album, clearly trying to redirect. But Joy wasn't having it. She waved Sonny off and doubled down. "Values," Joy repeated with air quotes. "Let's talk about those values. Are we talking about the values that want to control women's bodies? The values that resist change at every turn? Because I've been to some of these small towns, Reba, and I've seen—" "Have you, though?" Reba cut her off, and her voice was louder now. "Have you actually spent time with these people? Sat in their homes? Listened to their struggles? Or do you just drive through on your way to somewhere you think is better and make assumptions?" The audience gasped. This was getting heated fast. Joy's face flushed red, and her voice went up an octave. "Excuse me? I don't need a geography lesson from someone who makes millions singing about dirt roads and pickup trucks. I'm talking about real issues here, Reba. Real problems that affect real people. And I'm talking about real people," Reba shot back. "The same people you just called backwards. These are my people, Joy. I grew up in Oklahoma. I know what it's like to struggle, to work hard for everything you have. These folks don't have the luxury of sitting around debating politics all day because they're too busy trying to keep their lights on and feed their kids." Joy slammed her hand on the table, and the sound echoed through the studio. "Don't you dare try to make this about economic anxiety or whatever excuse you want to use. I'm talking about the fact that these areas consistently vote against their own interests, against progress, against against what you think is best for them. Reba was standing now, her voice filling the room. Who made you the expert on what's best for people you clearly don't understand or respect? You sit here in your New York studio and judge people from places you've never been, doing jobs you've never done, living lives you know nothing about. The studio erupted. The audience was making noise, some clapping, some gasping, everyone talking at once. The producers were probably losing their minds in the control room. This wasn't a debate anymore. This was a full-scale confrontation. Joy stood up too, pointing her finger at Reba. I know plenty. I know that these are the same people who want to drag this country backwards, who resist every attempt at progress. Who are you to decide what progress looks like? Reba's face was red now, her voice shaking with anger. Progress for who? For people in cities who already have everything? What about progress for the single mom working 2 jobs in a town you've never heard of? What about progress for the farmer who's about to lose his land because of policies made by people who've never planted a seed in their life? Joy's voice turned cold and sharp. This is exactly the problem with people like you, Reba. You're so busy romanticizing this rural lifestyle that you can't see the real damage being done. The prejudice, the resistance to change. People like me? Reba's voice was dangerously quiet now. What exactly do you mean by that, Joy? The question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Joy hesitated for just a second, but then her mouth opened, and the words came tumbling out. I mean, celebrities who pretend to be just regular folks, while making millions off of nostalgia and playing into stereotypes. You sing about small-town life, but when's the last time you actually lived it? You're selling them a fantasy, Reba, and they eat it up because it makes them feel good about staying stuck in the past. The audience went wild. Some people were booing. Others were shouting. Whoopi tried to call for commercial break, but nobody was listening anymore. This had gone completely off the rails. Reba's entire body was tense. Her hands were clenched at her sides, and when she spoke, her voice was ice cold. You know what, Joy? I've been in this business for over 40 years. I've been interviewed by hundreds of people. I've dealt with critics, with skeptics, with people who didn't like my music or my politics or anything about me. But I have never, in all that time, been disrespected the way you're disrespecting me and my fans right now. Joy crossed her arms. Oh, so now you're playing the victim? That's rich. I'm not playing anything, Reba snapped. I came here thinking we were going to have a conversation. Instead, you ambushed me. You insulted my fans, questioned my authenticity, and basically called everyone from my home state a bunch of idiots. And for what? What was the point of this, Joy? To make yourself feel superior? The point, Joy said, her voice dripping with sarcasm, is that someone needs to call out this fake folksy bullshit that, don't you dare, Reba's voice cut through like a whip. Don't you dare call me fake. I've worked my ass off for everything I have. I didn't grow up with money or connections. I grew up on a ranch in Oklahoma, helping my dad with cattle, learning to sing at rodeos. Everything I have, I earned, and I never forgot where I came from, or the people who supported me along the way. Joy rolled her eyes, actually rolled her eyes on camera, and that's when things really exploded. Oh please, Joy said, spare me the rags to riches story. We've all heard it 1,000 times. The point, Reba interrupted, her voice shaking with fury, is that you're a bully. That's what this is. You invited me here to make yourself look smart by making me look stupid. You wanted to trap me into saying something you could use against me. Well, guess what, Joy? It didn't work. Because I'm not ashamed of where I'm from or who I am or the people I love. Joy laughed, but it was bitter and cruel. A bully? I'm a bully for asking legitimate questions about your fan base and their political views? Give me a break, Reba. If you can't handle a little pushback, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews. Pushback? Reba's voice went up. You call insulting an entire region of the country pushback? You call mocking people's values and their way of life pushback? No, Joy. That's not pushback. That's arrogance. That's you sitting in your ivory tower looking down on people you think are beneath you. The other hosts were frozen. Nobody knew what to do. This wasn't supposed to happen. These things were usually scripted, controlled, manageable. But this was raw. This was real. and it was getting worse by the second. Joy stepped closer to Reba, her face twisted with anger. You want to talk about arrogance? How about the arrogance of thinking that just because you sing songs about small towns, you speak for all of them? How about the arrogance of pretending like everything is fine when there are real problems that need to be addressed? Reba didn't back down. She stepped forward too, and now they were face to face. I never said I speak for everyone, but at least I respect them. At least I don't sit here and call them backwards and stupid just because they don't agree with me. You know what your problem is, Joy? You can't stand the fact that there are millions of people in this country who don't think like you do. And instead of trying to understand them, instead of showing them an ounce of respect, you attack them, you mock them, you treat them like they're idiots who need you to save them from themselves. Joy's face was bright red now. That is not what I'm doing. That's exactly what you're doing, Reba shouted. And you're doing it to me right now. You brought me on this show to humiliate me because you can't stand what I represent. You can't stand that there are successful people who don't share your worldview. Well, I've got news for you, Joy. The world is a lot bigger than your New York bubble, and the people you're so quick to dismiss, they matter just as much as you do. Joy's voice turned sharp and nasty. Oh, they matter. They matter so much that they consistently vote to make life harder for women, for minorities, for... There you go again. Reba threw her hands up. You can't help yourself, can you? Every single thing comes back to politics with you. Every conversation. Every topic. You have to turn it into some kind of political lecture. Well, I'm done listening to it. Then leave, Joy said suddenly, her voice cold. If you don't like the questions, if you can't handle an actual conversation about real issues, then leave. Nobody's forcing you to be here. The studio went completely silent. Even the audience stopped murmuring. Whoopi looked horrified. Sunny had her hand over her mouth. Joy had just told a guest to leave. On live television, Reba stared at Joy for a long moment. Her chest was rising and falling rapidly. Her jaw clenched tight. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet but deadly serious. You know what, Joy? That's the first smart thing you've said all day. I am going to leave. Because I don't need this. I don't need to sit here and be insulted by someone who clearly has zero respect for me, or the millions of people who support me. I came here in good faith, ready to talk about my music, my tour, my life. And you turned it into an ambush. Joy crossed her arms again, a smug look on her face. An ambush? That's dramatic. I ask you some questions, Reba. If that feels like an ambush to you, maybe you need to examine why. Reba shook her head slowly, and there was something like disgust in her expression. You don't get it, do you? This isn't about the questions. This is about basic human decency. This is about treating people with respect. Something you clearly know nothing about. She started to unclip her microphone, her hands shaking with anger. The producers were probably screaming in everyone's ears at this point, but nobody stopped her. Joy just stood there with her arms crossed, watching. I've been famous for a long time, Reba continued as she removed the mic pack from her belt. I've dealt with a lot of difficult people, but I've never met anyone quite like you, Joy. You use this platform to tear people down, to divide, to spread your own brand of hate while pretending it's somehow noble or justified. Well, I'm not going to be part of it, Joy scoffed. My brand of hate? That's rich coming from someone who performs for... Don't. Reba held up her hand, her voice sharp. Don't finish that sentence. Don't you dare try to paint me as something I'm not just because you can't handle being called out on your own behavior. She placed the microphone on the table with a deliberate, controlled movement. Then she looked directly at Joy, her eyes blazing. I hope you're proud of yourself. I hope this is exactly what you wanted. Because you just showed everyone watching exactly who you really are. Not a journalist, not an interviewer. A bully who hides behind social issues to justify treating people like garbage. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Reba cut her off one more time. I'm done. I'm walking out of here, and I'm never coming back. You can keep your show, your panel, your whole setup. I don't need any of it. My fans know who I am. They know what I stand for. And that's all that matters. The audience was in complete chaos now. Some people were clapping for Reba. Others were booing Joy. The other hosts looked like they wanted to disappear into their chairs. Security guards had moved closer to the stage, unsure if they needed to intervene. Reba turned away from the panel and started walking toward the exit. Her posture was straight, her head held high despite the fury clearly still coursing through her. She didn't look back, didn't hesitate, just kept walking with purpose and dignity. Joy called after her, her voice sharp and angry. "Real mature, Reba. Just walk away when things get tough." Reba stopped. For a second, everyone thought she might turn around and come back. The tension was unbearable, but then she just shook her head and kept walking. "That's right. Run back to your safe space," Joy shouted, and her voice had this ugly edge to it that made even some audience members cringe. "Go back to singing for people who don't challenge you." Reba reached the door at the side of the stage. She put her hand on the handle and paused for just a moment. When she spoke, her voice was loud enough for everyone to hear, but she still didn't turn around. "You're not challenging anyone, Joy. You're just mean. There's a difference." And with that, she pushed through the door and was gone. The heavy studio door swung shut behind her with a loud bang that echoed through the stunned silence. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The camera operators didn't know where to point their cameras. The producers were losing their minds. The audience was in complete shock. Joy stood there at the table, her face red, her chest heaving, looking like she couldn't quite believe what had just happened. The other hosts stared at her with expressions ranging from shock to what might have been disapproval. Whoopi finally found her voice and called for a commercial break, but the damage was done. The confrontation had lasted less than 15 minutes from start to finish, but it had been 15 minutes of pure, unfiltered conflict. No handlers stepping in, no producers cutting to commercial, just two strong-willed women going head-to-head, and only one of them walking away with their dignity intact. As the show cut to commercial, you could still hear chaos in the studio. The audience was talking loudly, some people standing up, others pulling out their phones to record what they'd just witnessed. Joy was saying something to Whoopi, but the microphones were off now. The moment was over, but the impact of what had just happened was only beginning. Reba McEntire had walked onto that stage as a guest, and walked off as a legend who refused to be bullied. Joy Behar had started the interview as a host, and ended it, having exposed something ugly about herself that no amount of backtracking could erase. The dramatic exit, the heated exchange, the complete breakdown of any pretense of civility, it was all captured on camera for the world to see. One thing was absolutely certain as that studio door closed behind Reba. The view would never be the same. Neither would Joy Behar's reputation. And Reba McEntire had just reminded everyone exactly why you don't mess with a woman who grew up working on an Oklahoma ranch. She didn't need the View's platform. She didn't need their approval. And she definitely didn't need Joy Behar's disrespect. The country music icon had walked out with her head held high, leaving behind a shocked studio and a host who had finally pushed someone too far. It was the kind of television moment that people would be talking about for years, raw, real, and completely unscripted. And it all ended with the simple, powerful image of Reba walking away from a situation that no longer deserved her presence.